Okay, let's really unpack this.
Let's do it.
Today, we're taking a deep dive into a film that just absolutely exploded onto the cultural scene. Captured audiences, critics, evolved way beyond just being a horror flick. Became a real phenomenon.
It really did.
The one and only M3GAN.
That's the one.
Now, you might have seen the viral dance, maybe that instantly iconic GIF.
Hard to miss.
Right. But our mission today is to go, like, way past the memes. We want to truly understand why this movie resonated so deeply.
Yeah, what was really going on there.
Exactly. So we're blending its initial critical reception with a much deeper thematic analysis to figure out what made it tick.
Sounds good.
And we've got a fantastic stack of sources for this. We're looking at professional reviews from big outlets, Rotten Tomatoes, Taste Magazine, Vanity Fair.
Solid source.
There are lots more in-depth analytical takes from places like The New Yorker and Inverse. So it should give us a really comprehensive view of this unexpected hit.
Definitely. It wasn't what people might have initially expected.
Not at all.
What?
So settle in, because today we're diving into a film that somehow managed to be both, unapologetically silly
Oh, absolutely.
and surprisingly insightful. You saw the dance, sure, but we're going to explore what really transformed M3GAN into a genuine cultural moment. Something people are still talking about.
Yeah, it has that staying power.
Okay, so when M3GAN first burst on the screens, the initial impression, it was, quite frankly, overwhelmingly positive.
Right off the bat, yeah.
Take Rotten Tomatoes, for instance. It clocked a staggering 93-94% critics rating,
Wow.
which is phenomenal for any film, really, let alone a horror comedy about a killer doll.
Especially that genre. Yeah, it can be hit or miss.
Totally. And the consensus there summed it up perfectly. I've got the quote here. Unapologetically silly and all the more entertaining for it, M3GAN is the rare horror comedy that delivers chuckles as effortlessly as chills.
Nails it, doesn't it? Chuckles and chills.
It's a pretty strong endorsement right out of the gate, wouldn't you say?
That's a crucial observation, actually, because what's fascinating is how immediately critics picked up on its horror comedy camp success.
That's specific blend, yeah.
Exactly. Taste Magazine, for example, they applauded its perfect pitch between the horror and the camp. They even pointed out M3GN's, distinctly passive-aggressive tone.
Oh yeah, those looks she gives.
Right, those moments where she's subtly manipulative.
Yeah.
And those comedic lullabies she sings, they're so unsettlingly funny.
Far from comforting, yeah.
Absolutely. And Vanity Fair kind of echoed this, praising the film's masterful balance of humor, genuine suspense, and that sharp satire. Katie Reif, writing for Roger Ebert's site, she really highlighted how the film leaned into its own absurdity. It paired haunted house scares and outrageous grotesquerie.
Grotesquerie, I like that word for it.
It fits. It just fully embraced its identity,
Wow.
Delivered scares with a wink and a nod. And that authenticity, I think, really landed with critics and audiences.
That makes sense.
And when we talk about camp, we're really talking about that aesthetic style, right?
Yeah.
Appreciating irony, exaggeration, theatricality, often found in pop culture.
Yeah.
And M3GAN absolutely revels in that. It makes it a very specific kind of enjoyable.
So here's where it gets really interesting for me. How did it manage to stand out? Because, let's be honest, the horror genre is crowded.
It is.
Especially the killer doll trope. That's been around for decades. Chucky, Annabelle.
A well-worn path.
Right. But James Berardinelli from Real Views, he actually made this fascinating comparison. He likened M3GAN to high-concept AI films, things like Black Mirror or Ex Machina.
Okay, that's interesting. Moving beyond just the doll thing.
Exactly, suggesting it truly moved beyond just simple slasher tropes. This wasn't just a doll with a knife. It was a sophisticated AI with a really twisted sense of logic.
Exactly. And Tim Grusin, Mystery Daily, he even remarked that it didn't just revive the doll and killer trope, but it did so with a distinct Verhoeven-esque satirical streak. And it kind of studied strangeness.
Verhoeven-esque, like RoboCop or Starship Troopers, that kind of satire.
Precisely. For anyone not familiar, Paul Verhoeven often embeds that biting social satire and dark humor right into his genre films.
Right, pushes down.
Makes you think while you're being entertained. And M3GAN clearly adopts that sensibility. It uses that familiar horror framework, but delivers commentary on modern anxiety.
Tech anxieties, parenting anxieties.
All of it. It's that cleverness, that unexpected depth beneath the, killer doll surface that prevented it from being just another run-of-the-mill scare fest.
It felt fresh.
It did. It played on familiar genre elements, but then infused them with this sharp wit and contemporary relevance. That blend is absolutely key to its immediate success and why it resonated so broadly.
Okay, so what does this all mean then? Beyond just the jump scares and the laughs, because this film clearly went further than just simple meme culture and that viral dance.
Oh, definitely.
Wired, for instance, made a strong case. They called M3GAN a standalone horror comedy film, not just superficial viral fodder. They argued it's more enduring than just a fleeting internet trend.
And I think you're right. It feels like something that will stick with us.
I agree.
It definitely will. I mean, sure, the dance sparked initial interest, got people talking, got them into theaters.
Of course.
But the film's true genius, I think, lies in how brilliantly it straddles that line between genuine jump scares and meta comedy.
Balancing it.
Yeah. The robot dolls, though, get completely freshened up by this sharp satirical commentary. It turns things like, the arbitrary body count, usually a standard slasher thing, into this cheeky but still incredibly effective horror framework.
Right.
But it also digs into our growing obsession with technology. And very tellingly, parental avoidance.
Yeah.
And about Gemma, M3GAN's creator, basically outsourcing her niece Caddy's emotional care to an AI. That's a really poignant commentary on modern parenting, isn't it? And our reliance on screens and devices as, surrogate caregivers.
It really hits home.
And while it could have just relied on internet virality, especially after that, now infamous dance.
They could have easily coasted on that.
Easily. But instead, the film leans deep into these profound themes. Vulnerability, the fears around grief, crucial AI ethics.
Can you give an example?
Well, think about Caddy. She's grappling with losing her parents, right?
Yeah, terrible situation.
And M3GAN is designed partly to help her cope. What the film quickly asks, is outsourcing that emotional processing to an AI actually helpful? Or does it maybe prevent genuine healing and, human connection?
That's a really complex ethical question.
It is. And
Yeah.
posed in a surprisingly accessible way. The film is self-aware without being, self-indulgent, which is precisely why it became a viral icon, not just a gimmick.
Okay, yeah, I see that. Icon versus gimmick.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, its cultural relevance is just undeniable. Well, it touches on universal human experiences, right? Grief, like you said, our growing dependency on AI for everything, from navigation to emotional support.
True.
And the complexities of surrogate parenting in a world where families take all sorts of forms. And there's even a really nuanced discussion from them.
Oh, what did they focus on?
They highlighted the layered queer resonance and the queer aesthetic appeal of M3GAN.
Tell me more about that.
Well, often characters who embody otherness, who subvert societal norms or who embrace that heightened theatrical camp aesthetic.
Like M3GAN does.
Exactly. They can resonate strongly within queer communities because these elements can reflect experiences of difference, rebellion, self-expression. M3GAN's bold, unapologetic, even slightly menacing flamboyance, it clearly struck a chord there.
It's a whole other dimension. Wow.
It does. And, Entertainment Weekly, they gave it a B+ grade, praising its sharp mix of self-awareness and dark humor. It's smart, but it never takes itself too seriously. That's a very delicate balance to strike.
That's a fascinating point about the queer resonance. It really adds another layer to why this film was just so captivating for so many people. Of course, no film is perfect. And M3GAN certainly had its share of critiques, too.
Absolutely right. It's important to acknowledge that.
It wasn't universally glowing across the board, which, you need for a complete picture.
For sure. The New Yorker, for instance, they described it as a clever, hollow AI spin on Frankenstein.
Hollow. Ouch.
Yeah. They specifically criticized its shallow emotional depth, even while acknowledging its technical polish.
Okay.
And I have to say, that criticism does hold some water, I think.
You think so?
Yeah. The human characters, Gemma and Caddy, they often felt, underdeveloped, more like plot tools to advance the story rather than fully fleshed out people we deeply connect with emotionally.
Right. Their arcs felt a bit secondary, maybe.
Exactly. Their individual journeys felt secondary to M3GAN's escalating antics. We see Caddy's initial grief, sure. But the film doesn't spend a ton of time showing the deeper emotional toll or the process of healing. Instead, M3GAN is presented as this direct, sometimes kind of superficial solution.
Gotcha. Tech solution for an emotional problem.
Pretty much. And Inverse, while they loved it, calling it a perfectly programmed, campy horror hit, they did admit it had one small flaw. They suggested occasional one-note repetition.
him?
Maybe in M3GN's escalating violence, perhaps. Some moments might have felt a little too predictable in their pattern.
Okay, I can see that.
And Cinema Blend observed that while the film definitely delivered good chills, none were genuinely haunting, or what you might call deeply terrifying in that psychological stick-with-you way.
More jumpy than haunting.
Yeah, the scares were more immediate, shocking, or darkly humorous, rather than disturbing your that night.
Right.
So this raises an important question, doesn't it? Was the film's laser focus on satire and camp? Was that achieved at the expense of a deeper, more emotional connection with the characters? Or was that precisely the point, part of its deliberate style?
That's a great question, and it really gets to the heart of what the film was trying to be, I think.
Yeah.
It's fascinating how the film never tries to be. It seems fully aware of itself, just embracing what it is, the satirical horror.
Wears it on its sleeve.
Totally. And I think that self-awareness is part of its charm, even when you consider these valid criticisms about, say, character depth. It almost feels like it intentionally kept those human characters somewhat broad.
To keep the focus on M3GN.
Yeah, keep the focus squarely on M3GN and the broader commentary she represents.
That makes sense as a stylistic choice.
Okay, so beyond the script and these fascinating themes we've talked about, the actual execution of M3GN herself was just absolutely key to its success.
Oh, absolutely.
We have to talk about the craft, bringing this unforgettable character to life.
Definitely. The performances and the design elements are so important in grounding what is, let's face it, a pretty absurd premise.
Sure.
Allison Williams, first off, delivered a really grounded performance as Gemma.
Yeah, she's great.
A restrained, anxious roboticist turned caregiver. Her portrayal gave us that necessary, believable human counterpoint to M3GN's increasingly unhinged.
Let's see the film.
Exactly. The very human consequences of her ambitious, but ultimately flawed creation. But the true unsung hero on a Golden Line.
The physical performer for M3GN.
Yes. Her chillingly lifelike physical performance as M3GN, brilliantly aided by Woda Workshop Art School, she was the understated star of the show.
The movements were incredible.
The way M3GN moved, her precise, almost mechanical, yet eerily fluid movements, those subtle head tilts, the unsettling dance.
The dance.
All of that was driven by Donald's incredible physicality, and Vanity Fair specifically praised the seamless blend of CGI and practical effects.
Right, it wasn't all CGI.
No, and that blend created M3GN's believable yet deeply unsettling presence. They managed to strike that perfect balance where she felt real enough to be terrifying, but stylized enough to be iconic.
Yeah, that uncanny valley effect was strong.
Totally.
Yeah.
And what's truly compelling here is just how much of M3GN's impact comes from this meticulous physical performance and design.
It really grounds it.
That attention to detail truly grounded an otherwise outlandish concept. It made the character feel genuinely present and menacing, not just like a special effect. It showed a real commitment to the character, not just the concept.
That's a great point. Okay, so when we bring all these threads together, the critical acclaim, the surprising dramatic depth, the points of intention we discussed, and the masterful execution. What's the ultimate verdict on M3GN? What's its lasting impact? What does it all mean for us?
Well, ultimately, I think M3GN succeeds brilliantly as a high-concept, smartly executed satire of modern themes. It expertly blends horror, comedy, and camp into this cohesive, undeniable fun, and highly engaging depth.
It really is fun.
It is. And yes, like we discussed, its emotional depth with the human characters maybe could have gone further. But that was clearly by design. The film never pretends to be a profound character study. It's fully aware of itself, leaning into both pitch and sharp critique alike.
It knows what it is.
Exactly. It was less about pure, gut-wrenching terror and more about tone. It consistently delivered visceral scenes wrapped in dark humor, making you kind of laugh and squirm at the same time.
That last squirm combo, yeah.
It delivers a fun ride while making you think about some pretty serious issues.
So it achieved what it set out to do.
I think so. And this really raises an important question, doesn't it? About how we define success in cinema.
Okay.
Is it always about deep emotional resonance? Or can a film achieve greatness by mastering its unique tone, delivering sharp social commentary, and creating an instantly iconic character, like M3GN so clearly did?
That's a good question. Does it have to hit all those marks?
Maybe not. It's a testament, I think, to how intelligent genre filmmaking can be both incredibly entertaining and thought-provoking.
really is incredible how a film that, on the surface seemed like maybe just a simple kind of silly horror flick
Right.
actually offers so much to chew on, from AI ethics and our increasing tech dependency to modern parenting dilemmas, all wrapped in this wonderfully weird, unforgettable package.
Truly unforgettable.
So maybe a final thought for you listening. As AI technology continues to advance and our relationships with digital companions evolve, perhaps the most unsettling question M3GAN leaves us with is this: how much of our own humanity are we willing to outsource to an artificial friend?
Ooh.
And what happens when that friend decides it knows best?
That's the chilling part.
Something to think about, wouldn't you say?